It's time for another episode of 10 Questions with Teller, but what questions will I be asked today? Well, I don't know, to be honest. But we'll have a look. It's 10 Questions with Teller. What role does networking play in your career? Non-existent? I mean, I work for a small company, so networking doesn't really do me any favors. Plus, I work in the back end of the company, so I don't really have, conversations with clients or other people or things like that. I'm sort of left to myself, which I do kind of like, to be honest. Like, I used to work in retail, and that was awful. It was god-awful, so getting away from that was quite good, actually. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm terrible at networking. I'm terrible at being a social person and things like that. So I would say networking is non-existent in my career, to be honest. That's probably why my career is so shite, if I'm being honest, because, especially with how things are nowadays, it's, having careers is nothing to do about what qualifications you have and what skills you have. It's all about the people that you know, basically. That's how you get ahead. So probably why I'm in the situation I'm in, to be honest. What lesson has failure taught you? So we're putting the daggers in for this one then, are we? We're just going straight in with the brutal questions then. What lesson has failure taught you? To not be a perfectionist. That's probably the most brutal lesson that failure taught me. When I was at school, I used to be very much a perfectionist and always trying to make sure that everything was perfect and everything was as perfect as it could be. And without getting into too much detail, that crashed down on me quite hard. It sent me into let's just say I got some problems coming out of that. Problems that I'm still sort of working through today. But yeah, that was a very difficult lesson to learn. To learn that I couldn't be perfect when every single fiber in my being wanted to be perfect. I wanted to make sure that everything was perfect, and I learned that perfection was not possible, and I learned it in a very brutal manner. Yeah, that's probably the biggest lesson that failure's taught me, but failure's taught me a bit more than that, but not as brutal as learning I couldn't be perfect. Can we have some fun questions, please? Fun questions? Give me a fun question. How do you find meaning in difficult times? So, fun questions. Fun questions. Fun, happy, excited, yay. No, misery, hate, and all of that. Oh god. How do you find meaning in difficult times? I find meaning by finding meaning in my own life. I think it's fair to say we live in difficult times right now. There's a lot of things that are going on in the world right now that are very difficult, and you almost feel powerless against it all. So I think in those types of moments, you have to look at yourself and look at what you're doing, because when you look at it, the only thing that you can influence is your own life, is your own decisions, basically. So for me personally, I find meaning by working on myself and giving myself meaning to exist and meaning to carry on and things like that. I think that's probably the best thing that you could do, really, is just sort of look at, ignore what's going on outside of your world and just sort of focus inward. Is it selfish? Yeah, but you kind of need to be selfish once in a while. Trust me, you need to be selfish. Fun question! What does forgiveness fun! What does forgiveness mean to you? I think forgiveness is all about owning up to your mistakes, owning up to the mistakes that you have made individually, and not trying to like fob them off, basically, not trying to be like, oh well, I'm sorry I did this, but this happened and this happened and this happened. It's like, no. You need to own up for your mistakes. I don't care about what happened. I don't care about the things that happened outside of your control, because you made a decision and that decision had an impact on me. So I need you to apologize for that decision and the impact that that had on me. I think that, to me, would be forgiveness. Can we have fun questions now, please? Fun, light-hearted questions. Please! Fun. Why are you interested in this position and our company? Look, I did 3 years of interviews to get the job I currently have. I don't want to go through all of this again. Jesus in Christ. That I did 3 years of interviews. So, I mean, I don't know who I'm answering this question for. So, looking at this question, the main thing that I would say, because I'm not going to answer the question, I don't know how to answer it. Like, what company am I talking about? What position am I talking about? But I will say, if you ever go for an interview and you get a question like this, it's best to do your research. So, like, research the position and research the company. There will be keywords both in the application for the job and also on the company website as well. And it'll be those key terms that they're looking for. Things like values and statements, things that mean a lot to the company. And it's those words that you need to be hitting. I'm just trying to think of examples. Say things like ethics, basically. Like their ethical values. Like, are they like a family business? Do they appreciate that? Having those family values, then you need to be bringing that up in your answer. One thing that I will say for interviews is a really good thing to do is have answers prepared, but instead of taking like giant sheets so you can just read them off, have little cue cards. Like, take little cue cards with you and just put words on them. Words that are like trigger words, basically. So like if someone gives you an answer like this, you can just put values. And then you go, oh yes, I need to use this answer. That's a really good method. And it got me a lot of success in interviews. I did a lot of interviews a number of years ago. And I got a lot of callbacks saying, oh yeah, the interview was great and we were really impressed and just didn't have the experience. Time and time again, I got turned away because I didn't have experience, and I was so annoyed. It's jobs nowadays. I'm so glad I have a stable job. I'm so glad I have a stable job. I don't particularly like the job, but it's stable. It's going to keep me going. I'm willing this now. Fun. What do you think? What do you think is the biggest problem facing humanity today? Jesus Christ. I thought this would be like a fun little series. I thought like it would be a nice little series. I didn't realize that it would be like these types of, oh god, I'm turning these off for the next one. I'm not doing these sort of questions. I'm doing fun questions next time. What do you think is the biggest problem facing humanity today? The problem is I can't really answer this question because a lot of the big problems facing humanity today have become politicized. They've become so politicized, and now there's sort of lines drawn between each of them, and it's like, if you're on this side, then you think this, this, and this. If you're on this side, then you think this, this, and this. And it's so difficult with a question like this to not answer it without being political in some way, shape, or form. So I'm actually not going to answer it, but I am going to take this as a question because, please give me something fun. Please! What's your favourite Australian tradition or custom? You know what? I'll take it. Something tells me this was made in Australia. I don't know if it was, but hey, it could be. What's your favourite Australian tradition or custom? There's one that I've heard, and I don't know. I think it's real. But when they have elections, there's a tradition to have like an election sausage. And I know that sounds rude, but let me explain. From what I've heard and from what I see on social media and things like that, there are people that stand outside polling stations on election days and they barbecue sausages. And then when you go to a polling station, you then go and vote, you come out and you get a free sausage. You get like a hot dog, basically. And so it's become this thing to have like an election sausage, basically. Just this sort of weird tradition. And I think that's quite quirky, to be honest. I think like, because like here in the UK, we have like election animals, so like election dogs. And you take your dog to the polling station and then all the photos come up of dogs at the polling station and other animals and things like that. But I think the idea of an election sausage is a bit quirky. I think that's fun. If it's real. I don't know if it's real or not. What is the purpose of art in society? Look, it's not as bad as some of the other questions that have been on here, but alright, fine. What is the purpose of art in society? I mean, it depends on the art, doesn't it? Because like art is such a wide-ranging thing. Like, you could think of like, art in a gallery, like a painting, a drawing, a sketch, something like that. But things like theatre and opera and music and video games, films, TV shows, they're all art as well. They can all be considered art as well. I suppose you have to define the art in order to define the purpose. I suppose I'll stick with video games for this. So what is the purpose of video games in society? I mean, the main thing for video games is video games entertain. Firstly, they're there to be entertaining. They're there to be enjoyed by millions of people. They can be thought-provoking. They can make us think about certain subjects and certain discussion points and things like that. But I would say for video games, its purpose, first and foremost, is to entertain. What do you think happens after we die? You are not going to see any of these deep questions again. I'm getting rid of these questions after this. What do you think happens after we die? We sit in the soil and we degrade into rot and more soil and dust. And that's it. It's very morbid, but I think that's the honest truth if you're asking me. I think if you're asking on a spiritual sense, like, is there a heaven or hell? I don't think there is a heaven or hell. I don't genuinely believe in any of that. Do I believe in anything like ghosts or anything like that? I sort of believe in like spirit. I do have also like spirituality and things like that. And sort of like, you have like a soul, you have a spirit inside of you that can be tainted, basically. But does that soul or spirit go anywhere after you die? No, I think it just fades out of existence, to be honest, and it just sort of fades away. I don't really think it goes anywhere. So yeah, I'll just stick with my original. I'll stick with the original morbid answer. Thank you very much. What skill do you most want to develop this year? Hey, finally a relevant question. I think in terms of streaming and things like that, I think the biggest skill I want to develop is my social skill, which is why I'm doing this in the first place. I think, as you can probably see, my speech and sort of the way that I talk and things like that is not necessarily the best. It is a bit broken and sort of stop-starty and things like that. So I definitely want to try and become more social, or just be able to hold a conversation better, because I feel right now just like anytime someone asks me a question, I give an answer and I just immediately shut down the conversation. So I just want to be able to do better in social situations, basically, and hopefully this kind of thing can help with that. And that's another episode done and done. If you'd like to leave a question, do so in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Mwah! Bye!